Just moving away now from music itself, I'd just like to ask you a few questions about actual music tuition, learning music.
Yes.
Um, just basically, a lot of students focus their entire practice time on technical studies. It's necessary, but do you feel that it detracts from the practice of music itself?
Well, no, I don't. It depends. It depends. If that's all they're doing, then it's going to be a problem. But you know, I think the most important thing, and Miles did tell me this one time. He said him and Charlie Parker used to play sometimes 8 hours a day, or different musicians used to have jam sessions, and they'd play all the time. There were more places to play, but sometimes they would get together during the day and have jam sessions. So, especially if you're a guitar player, bass player, that's really easy most of the time because you just get the guy to you get a little amp and you get a guy to come over to your house and you play together. I've always done that so that you learn some technical stuff and then you put it right away in a real setting where you're really playing with somebody because ultimately that's what you want to do. And then if you can get a drummer in your apartment or something, that's good too, or get a rehearsal studio and play some, you know. Or you can get a drummer just to bring over brushes, you know, so he doesn't wake anybody else up. I mean, I do that kind of stuff still all the time. I'm always playing with different people. So I think that's really, really, really important. And that's to mix that with the technical stuff is really important, I think, and to really play in a practical in a realistic sense, really play the music, not just learn a standard and all the scales that could go along with it, but really start playing it so that you can learn the language like you speak English. You know what I mean? You'd learn it kind of. You don't have to think about every word, and at first you have to think about every word. And you know, if you're learning a new language, say you're learning French, and you're an English-speaking person, and you're learning French, you're going to be very self-conscious at first. At least I was when I was learning music, and I'm like this with any language, which I don't know anything, but I'm still working on English myself. But you know, the thing is that it's very similar to learning a new language. You feel very self-conscious at first. You're scared you're going to mispronounce or scared you're going to be laughed at or whatever, you know. And it's very self-conscious. And then after a while, you do it enough, you begin to get unconscious and fluent with the language so that things just roll off. Then you have, and if you're really fluent, you just have an idea and you go for it. You don't have to think consciously about what words to pick. You have an idea, and the words come out right away. And that's kind of a improvising in a way. When you're asking, you don't have anything written. You have maybe an idea of what you want to say, but you don't know how the words are going to come out, what phrases you're going to use, if they're going to be long phrases, short phrases. They just pop out instantly because you know the language. That's the way you got to get with this kind of language, I think. And then, on top of that, you can take any language, but especially the language of music, you can take it as far as you possibly can, and you still won't even come close to being to learning all the stuff that there is in the language of music. But and throughout all that, I think the most important thing is to remember that music is a language, but it's a language of the heart. So you have to. The most important thing is to get the emotion across, even if you're not. If so, sometimes you have to remember that, and then they'll balance whatever technical thing you're looking for, so that you don't get lost in the technique, but you remember that this is about playing with the emotion. That's why Stevie Ray Vaughan or B.B. King is a great example. It doesn't have a lot of technique, but the emotional impact is very strong when he bends a note, and it's just you know where he's coming from. You know what I mean? So it's a balance of all that stuff.
Yeah. So with that in mind, would you say that playing with others is the most important thing in a young musician's development?
I think there's both. I mean, I think learning, you know, is the right scale to go with right things so that they're not just playing and not knowing what they're doing. They have to try to learn the language a little bit, but at the same time try to play with others. That's very important. And also ear, of course, music is about listening. So listen to the music without analyzing it sometimes. Just listen from the heart to somebody else's music, like a Sonny Rollins record, and then try to maybe transcribe it and try to grab some of it and see if you can make it your own. Transcribe a few licks or a whole solo of Sonny Rollins on St. Thomas, off of Saxophone Colossus, which is a great record, or a Wes Montgomery record called Smoking at the Half Note. To transcribe maybe a blues, as much as you can. When he starts playing chords, maybe you won't be able to hear the chords, all the voicings, but you could grab the write down the top note and the rhythms. And so transcribing really helps in terms of learning the music. But you have to take the practice, the individual practice that you do, if you're learning new scales or arpeggios or all that, and then play with musicians, or if you're transcribing or whatever, so that you practice a little during the day, and then maybe in the afternoon you get together and try to play with somebody. So you really balance it out so it gets real. Sometimes at first you can't play with anybody. You have to maybe get another guitar player who's on your same level, maybe a little bit better, and try to do as best you can with it. But eventually, as soon as you can, I'd say try to play with people.
Yeah. Just to round the interview off, I just want to ask a couple of questions now, just about your current and future plans.
Oh well, I'm coming to Europe doing this tour, right? Coming up, and then I'm just doing a lot of touring with my own band, and I did the last record I did was called Big Neighborhood, and it's got a whole bunch of different people on it: Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, and Richard Bona, and Esperanza Spalding, and Terry Lynn Carrington, and Dave Weckl. It's a bunch of people. It was an interesting record to make, and it was fun, but. So I'm touring in Europe, and I'm also touring in the summer with Tom Kennedy and Dave Weckl, and Didier Lockwood, who's a violin player, a great violin player from France, a motherfucker. And so we're touring in the summer together. And then I'm doing some stuff in Japan with Richard Bona and Dennis Chambers and Randy Brecker at the Blue Note. And I just was there with Lee Ritenour, actually. He did a record with a bunch of different guitar players, and he asked different guys who are on the record to do different projects with him live. So I went to Japan with him, and we actually did a little filming there. There was a film company called Mount Fuji Films or something like that wanted to do a thing for TV, so we did that. He might release that as a DVD if it comes out good enough. We don't know yet, but it was interesting because Lee Ritenour is not he's from the West Coast. I'm from the East Coast, of the States, and it's kind of a slightly different thing. But it was fun. It hooked up good. Simon Phillips was playing drums, and his bass player. What's his name? Melvin Lee Davis was playing bass. He's a bad cat from the West Coast, and then John Beasley was playing piano. So it was an interesting project, but so I do different things with different people, but mainly my own band. And I'm going to do a recording as soon as I have time, but I haven't had any time. I've got about 15 tunes written and ready to go. They're all, the arrangements are ready, the solo sections, all that stuff. And with a little rehearsing, I could do them. And I want to try to do it with different people, the same way I did the last record, with different people that I know that I've played with over the years, or maybe a couple of people that I haven't played with. I'm thinking about Marcus Miller, who I played with, to do some of the bass stuff on this. Victor Wooten, who I've also played with. Maybe Stanley Clark also, since I'm out in the West Coast. We've never played together. Well, maybe we played once a long time ago. And Weckl, and, so I would do some of that out on the West Coast and some on the East Coast. Most of it, of course, is New York. So that's where I live, in New York City. So I'm very informed by the vibe of New York. It's just part of me. and so I've lived here for 30 years. So I've always been on the East Coast. I'm actually thinking about calling the record East Coast Songs, or East Songs from the East Coast.
All right.
Or Songs from the East Side. That's what I'm going to call it. Songs from the East Side, because I live on the East Side in New York City, too.
So you've got a name?
Huh?
You have a name now?
Maybe. I'm thinking of calling it Songs from the East Side, but I don't know yet, so don't even... I'm not sure. What do you think of that name?
I like it.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
Songs from the East Side. It sounds New Yorky.
Yep. Well,
And that's where I'm coming from. It's kind of if the there's some. I mean, basically, I think if there's something to wait for me to describe my own music, it's kind of got a lot of different influences. But there's always the blues is in there somewhere. So wherever the blues comes from, I guess that's where it's all over the planet. It's definitely in my music because it's just something that's part of me. I love that kind of feeling. It's kind of on the ground, But anyway, I want to do this new record. I guess I'll get Richard Bona on it too, and he'll sing some, and hopefully Esperanza. So we'll see what happens when I do it. But I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to do it, except for next December, I think, is when I have time.
Okay.
I've been really lucky to be working my ass off, and I consider myself incredibly lucky, really lucky, and also to be so fortunate to have played with all these musicians that I've gotten a chance to play with over the years.
Yeah. Do you find that touring and recording is still as rewarding as when you were younger, when you were starting out?
Excuse me, I missed that.
Recording and touring. Do you find it as rewarding as you did when you were younger?
Oh, it's rewarding in because the music's rewarding. The travel's a pain in the ass. That's the only problem. That's really hard, and it's hard to keep your. I miss Lainey. Sometimes she comes and visits me. My wife of 30 years. Sometimes she comes, but she's on the road too. Sometimes, but it's working because we've been married for 30 years, so that's great. But it's difficult, and the thing is, just the actual travel is just a pain in the ass. It's a lot of work. It's really. I sometimes say that I don't really get paid for the music. The music is the fun part. I get paid to travel. That's kind of the way I look at it. I'll play. I don't want to say this to have a promoter get it the wrong way, but I would sometimes I play for free at home. You know what I mean? I love to play all the time. I'm always working on music, but when I have to travel, it's hard. And of course, I mean, I need to make a living, so of course wherever I play, I gotta make some bread, like all of us. But the travel is what I'm trying to basically say is the travel is an ass kicker. That's for sure. But it's worth it. I still get really inspired by playing with these great players, and I consider myself very lucky to be able to take my own band and play my own music all over the place,
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, I'll leave you there, Mike. But thank you very much for your time. And I'll be at the gig in Manchester next month, so I will see you there.
Beautiful, man. Thank you very much. All right, I'll meet you there. Okay, man. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.